with
T-minus
GPS
30
3
seconds.
Space Vehicle number 3.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Go Falcon, go GPS.
Vehicle is pushing down range. Chamber pressure.
T plus 40 seconds, we've heard callouts, and now we're entering the throttle
Power
bucket. We're
telemetry
powering down the
nominal.
Merlin engines to relieve the acceleration as we get ready for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're in the throttle bucket, now we're beginning to power back up. We hear the call out exiting throttle bucket, the 9 Merlin 1D engines
Mach
going
1.
back to full power, and we are now supersonic.
Max Q.
Guidance engineer calls out max Q, the period of maximum dynamic pressure, or Q, on the vehicle. From this point forward, although we go faster and faster, the thinner atmosphere will put less loads on the airframe of the rocket. Coming up next is chill-in of the upper stage engine. We've got a good trajectory.
And back in until it started.
We've begun the chill-in of the upper stage engine. Power on the Merlin 1D engines looks good. Avionics reports everything is nominal. And we're T plus 2 minutes into flight. Next major activity in half a minute, shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines, separate the first and second stage, and ignite the second stage engine to carry GPS and the second stage into the first of 2 orbits today. This one will be the initial parking orbit. Falcon 9 preparing for MECO.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And we've confirmed ignition of the second stage engine after a good stage 1, stage 2 SEP. You could see briefly the Falcon 9 first stage in the background.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Call out that both vehicles are following the planned trajectory. First stage continuing to coast to apogee, where it'll then slowly turn around and descend back to the drone ship for landing in the Atlantic Ocean. The second stage engine beginning the long burn to get it into the parking orbit.
Acquisition of signal, Maryland.
Coming up, fairing deploy. Waiting to see the camera switch forward.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we've got fairing separation. The 2 halves of the Falcon 9 fairing separating, the pneumatic system unlatching the locks that hold it together, and then the pneumatic pushers separating the 2 halves. As the fairing falls away from the vehicle, we can see on the left side of the screen the grid fins, the large titanium castings that are mounted to the first stage have deployed. They'll be used later as we come back into the atmosphere for precision guidance of the first stage to land on the drone ship. On the right-hand side, we see the second stage engine continuing to burn. It's at full power. Everything's looking good with the trajectory. So at just past T plus 4 minutes into flight, everything is go on the flight of Falcon 9 with GPS 3, Space Vehicle number 3.
T plus 4 minutes and 25 seconds into flight. We're currently in the first of 2 planned Merlin vacuum engine burns. Currently looking at the data, the second stage engine burn is nominal. On your left-hand screen, you can see the first stage as it's performing that reorientation that John and I talked about. The grid fins are deployed, and you're seeing some thruster plumes there from the attitude control system that are getting it ready so that the 9 Merlin 1D engines are pointed towards the atmosphere as it re-enters into Earth's atmosphere. Beautiful views of the planet beneath both the first stage and the second stage. Second stage is continuing into its burn. We're expecting this burn
Both
to
vehicles
last
continue to
about
follow nominal
5
trajectories.
minutes and 15 seconds. And entry burn will actually begin on the first stage in just about a minute from now. During the entry burn, we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. That'll give us a chance to slow down the stage as it ends up re-entering the Earth's atmosphere and reduce the aerodynamic loads as it starts to bite into the thicker parts of the air around our planet. You can see the Merlin vacuum engine on your right-hand screen, the nozzle extension there growing red hot. That's expected. We're really, we have such a long nozzle extension on there to try to get the most performance out of the pressure coming out of the thrust chamber on the second stage engine. So coming up here in about 15 seconds is entry burn. Watch for that on your left-hand screen. That'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines, while second stage continues to burn towards that elliptical orbit with the GPS vehicle on board.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1, entry burn has started.
There's successful ignition of the 3 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. We're expecting this burn to last just about 30 seconds.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
You see some bursts there. Successful shutdown of the engine and some attitude control bursts just to get that orientation right. Now, once we get into the thicker parts of the atmosphere where those grid fins have some aerodynamic control authority, they will do most of the guiding to take the first stage towards our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions, which is about 350 nautical miles off the east coast of Florida. Coming up at about 50 seconds from now, we'll have 2 events happening about the same time. The first stage will ignite its single center Merlin 1D engine for landing burn. About the same time, the second stage will perform secondary engine
Stage
cutoff.
2 has entered terminal guidance.
Or SECO number 1. And while those 2 things occur, about 25 seconds later, the first stage will hopefully touch down on our drone ship. In between there, deploying its landing legs. So watch for that on your left-hand screen.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Drone ship, AOS. Stage 1, landing burn is starting.
Ignition of that center Merlin engine on the first stage.
SECO 1.
Successful confirmation of shutdown of the Merlin vacuum engine. The guidance engineer is evaluating the orbit of the second stage now.
Nominal parking orbit.
Nominal parking orbit,
Landing
that's
legs
exactly
are
what we want to
deployed.
hear. Landing leg deployment looks like right down the center.
And
Looks
stage
like
1
a
is
successful
landed.
landing.
Recovery operators move into
I see a
procedure
first
11.100
stage.
on
Excellent.
UTM-9.
So that, we first flew Falcon 9 10 years ago, actually this month. Since then, it's completed 88 missions, is now the most flown operational rocket in the United States. This mission completed its first landing, and hopefully we'll have many more to come.
Stage 2 expected.
The vehicle is now, we're actually going to enter into our first coast phase, now that we know that the second stage is in a successful parking orbit. That coast phase will last about 54 minutes and will end with our second stage relight at about T+1 hour and 3 minutes. We're going to come back shortly before that to cover the second engine start, number 2. Now, as we had mentioned earlier, today's mission is dedicated by the Space Force to the memory of Colonel Thomas Falzerano, commander of the 21st Space Wing at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. As a leader of the Air Force's fifth largest wing, he commanded a workforce of approximately 4,300 space professionals worldwide. We'll now hear from General Raymond and a number of Colonel Falzerano's colleagues in the Air Force and Space Force about the impact he had on all those he worked with.
Welcome back to the webcast of the Falcon 9 mission carrying GPS-3, Space Vehicle number 3 for the U.S. Space Force. Now, if you're just joining us, we had a smooth liftoff at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by separation of the first and second stages. We then had a successful burn of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine, and that placed us in the desired parking orbit. You can see on the screen, we're currently 422 kilometers up. We're passing south of Australia right now. Our next major event coming up in just 30 seconds is the second start of the upper stage engine called SES-2. Currently, from the orbit graphic, we are receiving data through our ground station in Tasmania. Second stage is firing settling pulses using cold gas. Make sure propellants are at the top of the inlets of the pump, ready to light that engine. And we've got video of the upper stage engine. And we've got startup confirmation. Propulsion confirms we are up on power on the MVAC-D engine. Now the second stage will burn for 44 seconds, and that's going to add over 2,000 meters per second to the speed of Falcon 9 before we shut it down for the second time. Now this shutdown event might be called out as SECO-2. Now this burn that we are in right now will place the GPS-3 space vehicle into the required orbit prior to separating it from Falcon 9. Views coming to you from two cameras on the bottom of the second stage as we switch back and forth so that we can see both sides of the engine. We've got shutdown, waiting for orbit confirmation.
Nominal insertion orbit.
And it was kind of faint in the background, but if you heard it, we have confirmation that the second stage is in a good orbit. This is the one we needed to get to place the GPS-3 satellite into its transfer. We're now going to head into a second coast phase with the GPS satellite still attached to the second stage. Now the plan is to deploy the GPS satellite in about 24 minutes. Now this wait period is caused by a couple of requirements. First, the second stage begins a slow spin that will provide stability.
Welcome back to our launch coverage of the GPS-3 Space Vehicle number 3 mission for the United States Space Force. Now, if you're just joining us, we had an on-time launch at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by successful ascent, stage separation, and 2 second stage engine burns. On your screen is a view of the GPS satellite atop Falcon 9. Now, one note earlier, I had mentioned that today was our 88th successful launch. It's actually our 87th successful launch today. So coming up in just about 15 seconds from now is our last major milestone, and that's deployment of the GPS-3 satellite from the second stage.
Payload separation confirmed.
And successful confirmation of the spacecraft continuing on to perform its mission. From here, the satellite will undergo some activation checks and perform burns to raise into a circular orbit about 20,200 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And with that, that's actually going to complete our primary mission. Now, another note, if you were watching our webcast earlier, we accomplished another recovery objective today, and that is successful securing of both the fairing halves that we jettisoned early on in the mission. So we'll have those for use on a future mission. And that's going to bring our webcast coverage to a close.
Great view looking at the GPS satellite moving away from the Falcon 9 second stage. We want to thank the United States Space Force for entrusting us with today's GPS-3 Space Vehicle 3 mission, and we also want to thank the satellite manufacturer, Lockheed Martin. SpaceX is one of 2 certified providers for national security space launch missions, and we're proud to be able to offer reliable, cost-effective launch services to the U.S. Space Force. We look forward to the additional GPS missions we will be supporting in the future. I also want to give out a special thanks to the 45th Space Wing for the range support out of the Eastern Range today. And finally, with this last view, watching GPS-3, satellite number 3, drifting away in the distance, we want to thank all of you, our viewers, for tuning in, and have a good day.